one of the issues that have been raised since this convention came into force has been, why is it that we still continue to have land degradation in the drylands? Why is it that we still do not have sustainable dryland management methods? And an answer to that question is always because people don't really understand the economics of it. The ministries who are responsible for national budgets do not understand that investment in drylands make good sense. That's the reason that is always being given. Now we don't really know if that's why, but it seems logical, and that's one of the reasons why it's important to have an economic valuation of sustainable dryland management. So it's an attractive proposition. It seems logical. We haven't really proven it, but that's why the CST, the Commission on Science and Technology under the Convention, decided that this scientific conference should focus on economic assessments of dryland management.
And there's an economic assessment on everything these days, isn't it? Is that because we are getting to the point where things need to happen? There's been enough scientific analysis from the environmental point of view, and the economic analysis is clearly developing too. Are we getting to the point, as far as this convention is concerned, where, implementation, things need to happen?
Absolutely. Things need to happen, and things are happening. Maybe we are not always capturing what is happening. And then there's also this idea, many people would like to have a one evaluation of everything, so we can say, okay, globally this is the cost. But it's linked with so great uncertainties that we don't really know if it would be useful. And the other thing is that many of these economic valuations, most economic valuations of environmental issues, use traditional mainstream economics, and that means that they are not really integrated with a lot of other work that is being done on sustainable land management, which takes a more systematic approach for ecological management, for instance. So it's not really integrated in that way, and that might also be a problem. And for that also we have when there is a general perception that when we talk about economic valuations, that those economists can give a precise answer. If they have run their calculations and they say it's worth $100, then it must be worth $100. But there are many, many different ways this can be done, and it might be worth $100 according to one methodology, but according to another methodology, it might be worth $1,000 or $50. So it's really according to which methodology. It's also according to which assumptions that is put in. It's whose values are we talking about? Are we talking about sustainability for the next 10 years? Are we talking about for 100 years? Are we talking about an ecosystem, a small ecosystem, or are we talking about a whole island, or the spatial boundaries are also not. There are lots of variables, aren't there? There are an enormous amount of variables, and I think the way many other disciplines see economists is that those are the ones with the calculator, and they can just plug in the numbers and they will come up with the magic number at the end, which is not the case. So another problem is that in much of these assessments that is being done, there's a tremendous amount of work that is being done, but often they are not communicated in the right way. They're not communicated with the uncertainties that is involved. And how do you communicate something very complex to a very complex audience also? And I think that's one of the major constraints we still have.
Yeah, but that's one of the major constraints in the whole environmental debate, exactly. Isn't it? How you communicate. I wanted to sort of pick up on, you mentioned ecosystem services, and it may not be true, but from what we understand, the Environment Minister in the UK has banned all his staff from mentioning the word ecosystem services. And I think he does it because he thinks it's a ridiculous terminology. But it does illustrate that there is an immense challenge when it comes to actually getting these out to the people that matter, the actual politicians right at the top?
There is a tremendous, but your politicians have some funny ideas sometimes, also because it was your government who came up with the sustainable livelihood approach, and then suddenly people in DFID could not use it any longer, and everybody else is using it. So I think next time we'll get a new government, it's probably something else. We'll see. But I, on the other hand, I think it's also worth noticing that there are several recent surveys in Europe done on the public's understanding of ecosystem services, and it's a concept that people easily grasp normally. So I don't think it's very wisely to abandon it. I think that we have made a good amount of work to really get the concept going. Now it comes to how do we really use the concept and how do we use it for evaluations. The big evaluation that was done in the UK on the value of ecosystem services is unique on a global scale, but is a good piece of work, and that also made that it became much more easy for people to understand what are we really talking about. And it was also presented with there is all these uncertainties that is quite clear in the document itself, I think.
And I guess the final point, in terms of these 3 big Rio conventions, they are seemingly under pressure like never before to prove their purpose in life. Really, they have to maybe do it year on year, but 20 years after they were all created in '92, they are under immense pressure. In terms of a desertification, which has taken a blow recently with Canada's withdrawal, what do you see as its main achievements, and can you sense that there is a sort of pathway stretching out into the future where it can still perform a sort of a proper function?
I think it's the convention has only been into existence for 20 years, so it's not a long time. There is a lot of communication to be done still, but there is also need for much more clarity about what we're talking about among the people who are involved. For instance, in a scientific conference like this one now, we don't really know what we're talking about when we talk about dryland science. Who are the people? We don't have any big idea about who are involved in dryland science. When I prepared this white paper, the conference paper on economic valuations for this conference, I did a quite thorough research on the recent papers and found out that there's a lot of paper that are dryland relevant, so that take place in the drylands, that touch things about the dryland, but they do not present themselves as dryland issues. That's not what they say their main issue is. Then there are other papers that say we are about desertification, but they do not really take place in drylands. There's another problem with this convention also, is that it's for desertification and drought, and drought is often sidelined, and drought is still being seen mainly as a catastrophe. Then you have a country like Australia who has said it's not a natural disaster. Drought is part of the daily management. Drought risk management. There was a conference recently in Geneva on drought risk management, and I fear a little bit that there might be that we are creating 2 parallel paths right now if we don't pay attention. So, I honestly feel that there is a much greater attention to the subject, but there is a long way to go still.